You know, this is the cleanest and nicest police car I've ever been in my life. This thing's nicer than my apartment.
Computer, I want you to shut down all the lens flare generators.
Lens flare generators deactivated.
Fascinating.
That's better.
I was unaware that we had that.
It's nice, right? I mean, who designs a starship where lights shine right in your eyes from virtually every angle?
Sweet and low? No. This is not sweet and low. This is equal. Blue packet. Sweet and low is pink. See? Equal blue, sweet and low pink. It's not.
Darth Vader, only you could be so bold. The Imperial Senate will not still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomat...
Colonel, you have been inconvenienced, and I'm prepared to compensate you. Shall we say 1 million American dollars? Very well then, 2 million.
Hey, how you doing? Back once again, one more time with Cinemaniacs. I am Mark. I am a Cinemaniac. You, hopefully, are a Cinemaniac. If you're looking for golf scores, just keep waiting. I'll get to them eventually. We have not a lot of films to talk about this weekend. Why? I'm going to tell you later why. But just you know that I was not busy this weekend, and I was not in the presence of films this weekend. I was just not at all in the presence of the new movies that came out. So we're going to talk about stuff anyway. First of all, I wanted to let everybody know, if you're watching on Facebook right now, hi. If you're not watching on Facebook, you can. Just so you know, if you follow our page on Facebook, which is the Cinemaniacs NH at Facebook or something like that, it probably says below here, but I'm not going to look at the monitor. We we stream the show live every week. For whatever that matters. Maybe I'll cuss, maybe there'll be a trailer with a little something extra in it. You'll see that on Facebook and probably nowhere else. I have to cut the trailers out for YouTube because of copyright issues, and on TV we kind of sanitize the things a little bit before they go on the air. So Facebook page is there, and I put event listings for cool screenings. I put information about the movies. I put a little extra content here and there. Not a lot, but some. Just so you know, that's there, and we're going with this live. So the one movie that I managed to see in the theater this weekend, let's call it a new release. Maybe it's been out for 3 weeks, but to me it was new. It's new to you until you've seen it, isn't it, Citizen Kane? And it's a film based on a series of popular children's books from the 80s that I didn't totally somehow bypassed me until more recent years. And produced by Guillermo del Toro. We have the tale of a group of youths in 1968 who uncover this secret book stashed in an old crazy person's house that has these creepy tales that are told sort of out of thin air and start to come true amongst the kids in this small town, and a film based on the books and similarly titled Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So directed by the director of a movie called Troll Hunter, which some people know, produced by Guillermo del Toro, who's done... If Del Toro is involved, there's a baseline level of quality there. And based on this, okay, so there's this series of books called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which you already know. I'm late to this whole party on this thing. And everybody I know who's a little younger than me, a lot of people I know who are a little younger than me, just rave about these books. Oh my God, they were so scary. The illustrations were so gruesome and amazing. That was my favorite thing as a kid. It creeped me out. And I'd never heard of them. I found a copy in a dumpster, actually, literally, and I finally looked at it to satisfy my curiosity. And what surprised me about this first book, at least, that I found, is that the stories are very, very short. They're just a few paragraphs. And the first book, at least, seems to be designed to be what it says, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And some of them are like party games, and some of them are just descriptions of things to do that are creepy at like a Halloween party or something. So what surprised me when I read the book as an adult, theoretically, is that the stories are very, very short and very simply told. And a lot of stories that have been around forever, like the hitchhiker with the hook and the this and that, a lot of stuff I'd heard in other forms from other sources that were older. This was just a compendium of those, and then subsequent volumes. So when I heard they were making a film out of this, I thought, ooh, that's kind of weird because they're very short stories, so this must be like an anthology movie or something. And it's not that. Basically, I've heard friends say or complain that it is very Stranger Things. It's a team of kids on bikes with walkie-talkies who are like, the Scooby Gang running around trying to solve this mystery before it takes them all out one by one. They discover this book that belonged to this woman who is a crazy lady in an asylum, and she wrote these creepy stories, and it seems that these stories come true, and it might be that they're based on the fears of the individuals who come across the book, to be honest, I was very tired, and the theater was very dark and quiet and warm, very comfortable seats at the Alamo Drafthouse Yonkers. I checked out a little bit during the first section of the movie, so I'm a little hazy on the whole first section of the movie. But once the killing started, I was wide awake and paying attention. So I didn't really care for this movie. Part of it was I didn't find it terribly scary at all. It was gruesome at times, a lot of jump scares, which I just don't like. And it did really seem aimed at a younger crowd. It really seems aimed at the target audience for those books. To me, this is aimed either at fans of the books who want to see some of the artwork that is so distinct and associated with the book. They want to see that realized on the big screen. You get that. Or they want to see how these stories are transformed into a narrative story that's feature length, which the stories weren't. Or it's for kids. And I say, whatever age of kid you feel comfortable going to see a movie where a guy gets a pitchfork through him, then this movie's fine for them. And teenagers, maybe? I don't know. It was a fairly young crowd when I went to see it, 20 or 30-somethings for the most part. I think, again, the audience for the book. So I wasn't really into it. I didn't really care about the characters. I found one character in particular very annoying, and his performance was really cartoony and bug-eyed and over the top. And the rest I just didn't care about. There's some familiar faces in the film, but no real big names from what I remember of it. But it's really well shot. It is a very autumnal October movie, which made me wonder, why the hell did this come out in the middle of the summertime? Maybe October? Maybe close to Halloween might be a good time to release a movie like this. I don't know. It's always bizarre to me that, Halloween time rolls around. For years it was Saw. If it's Halloween, it's Saw time or whatever. You always had those dependably. But I always feel like horror movies should just be glutting the market in October, because I think around Halloween, I found this when I was doing retro indoor shows, horror related. More people are open to the idea of seeing a scary movie as you get closer to Halloween. But traditionally, the last decade or more, decade or two, it seems like you get close to Halloween and there's just maybe one horror movie. You want to go see a scary movie in the theater and it's all like Disney stuff. So anyway, this I'm sure will hit video by Halloween time, and then everybody can see it at the seasonally appropriate time. So yeah, I didn't really care for scary stories to tell in the dark. It does angle hard for a sequel at the end. And I started laughing with the way they're basically verbally setting up a sequel that we may or may not get, depending on how much money this makes. I think it's certainly a concept that lends itself to more. The way they execute these stories and the characters in these stories is fairly well done. The gruesome, scary moments are well done. It was weird to me. They were trying to be very faithful to the look of the creatures or the ghosts or whatever from the book. And a lot of times to me, they just looked kind of cheesy. There's one character who's a man who's sort of made up of individual parts, as it were. And it was super CGI, cheesy, silly looking. Several moments of that for me were, but again, for somebody younger or somebody more impressionable or less jaded than I, it may fire on more cylinders than it did for me. So, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, still in theaters. I managed to catch it while it was still in theaters. That's all I saw in the theater this weekend that was new. I'm going to try to play catch up. We're not doing a show next week because of Labor Day weekend, and this studio is closed on Monday, which is the day we usually record this. So 2 weeks from today will be a big old catch-up show, providing I actually got off my butt and went out and saw anything, which I'm going to try to do. And there'll be a couple new movies on the way with that, but not a lot. I think It Chapter 2 is kind of the only thing that's coming along for a little while. Okay, so I will also say now, we have an email address. If you still do that sort of thing, I still do that sort of thing. Rarely, but I do it. If you want to send us a message about anything, and by us I mean me, feel free, movies@CheshireTV.org. That will come directly to me, and I will reply to the best of my ability. And questions, comments, movies that you don't remember the title to, where can I get a copy of, Ernest Scared Stupid? I'll help as best as I can. Now, we move on to that which is on the home video platform, service, device, format of your choice. There are so many choices now, and still it's impossible to find Kenny and Company. We have a film that is the latest American version of a Japanese, to say Titan, to say Goliath, to say Legend would all be words that are too small and easy to spell. This is the latest film with, don't roll the clip yet, this is the latest film from an American producer trying to give us an American Godzilla movie. This is the sequel to the previous Godzilla film from a couple of years ago. Some of the cast is back, I think. I don't remember. I didn't really like the first one. And they're back in a film about titanic kaiju wreaking havoc across the North American landscape in a battle of the wills and lasers and fiery things. And it is all hopes and dreams are pinned upon Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Very nice. So I've never really loved any American attempt at a Godzilla movie. It always seemed kind of arrogant to me to say, like, okay, you Japanese guys, yeah, you've been doing these for 50 years, and yes, they're internationally renowned, and they're all classics to some degree, but I think we know how to do it better. Hasn't quite happened yet. So I didn't care for the previous Godzilla movie that was done by Legendary Pictures. It was a mess, and I thought Godzilla movies are a very delicate balance. It cannot just be monster action, because if it is, that gets boring. Somebody said once, there's nothing so boring as being constantly amazed, and that's what happens with these movies. If it's all monster action nonstop, it's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. So you have to balance it out with the human characters and what they're doing. And the best Godzilla movies have either just silly and goofy or somewhat fun and intriguing human elements to them that offsets the monster action, hopefully sort of in some way relates to what's going on with the monsters. And I felt like the first Godzilla, American Godzilla, didn't really do that very well. I didn't care about the characters, and it felt like too much. A way you can cut down on having to have too much human interaction in a Godzilla movie is to not make them 2.5 hours long. Just saying. 80 minutes in and out is fine. So there was too much of that, and in the previous Godzilla movie, you could never see you couldn't see Godzilla. Like every time you saw Godzilla, it was a shaky camera, or it was through fog, or it was at night in the rain, or it was through a cracked car windshield, or it was on a TV monitor across a room. It was strange how aggressively they were not letting you see the creature. That is rectified with Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I do wish they would have called this movie something else, because that is technically the US title of the original Godzilla movie from the 50s, and I don't know, I'm a stickler for that. How about, there are other words you could pair with Godzilla to indicate that it's a Godzilla movie. So you do see the monsters in this. You see them a lot better. There's a lot more of them. This is really a kind of a Destroy All Monsters thing, where they really jacked the ante up with giving us a lot of the classic Toho creatures, given a new design spin, and in most cases not bad ones, looking a bit more realistic as a three-headed monster can be, and a bit more aggressive and kind of cool looking. Now, I still feel, like I'm going on memory here because I saw this in the theater and it was now a while ago. I did feel that maybe it was a little dark in a lot of places, where I really wanted to kind of get a better look at the monsters, because that's honestly why we're all there. And maybe a little too much, again, with the human element of people we don't really care about, which again, you could do that more effectively by just having less of it. Make a shorter movie. It's okay. Everything doesn't have to be 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I could be wrong. Again, it's been so long since I watched this. This could be a 75-minute movie for all I recall. But I remember it being long because everything kind of feels like it should be these days. But I thought it was fun. I thought this one was fun. I saw this at a matinee, which is, to me, the best time to see these. I grew up watching Creature Double Feature on Boston's Channel 56, and that's how I saw these originally, Saturday afternoons on TV. So seeing this at a Saturday afternoon matinee was fun. It's not as fun as the original Godzilla movies, because these American Godzilla movies are so dark and heavy. And the original Godzilla films, to a degree, were, but a lot of them, the sweet spot that a lot of us are fond of, which is like the 60s into the 70s, they were pretty light and well lit and kind of upbeat affairs to a degree. But this was fun. This was cool. I don't have any beef with more of these. I hope they keep making them. I hope they make them a little bit better each time. I think this one was better than the last one. The American cast is quite good. They get some sort of heavy hitters in this film. You get Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. You have Vera Farmiga, and you have a bunch of other people that you would recognize. And I'm not going to say this Godzilla movie is going to make anybody switch teams from being a non-monster movie fan to a monster movie fan, and I don't know that this is going to make any hardcore Godzilla fans suddenly be like, these American ones are just as good as the old ones. But these do have their fans, and I can kind of see the appeal a little bit more with this entry. I know they're leading up to King Kong versus Godzilla because, that's an iconic one from the past, and we're all about remakes now. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with that, what the creatures will look like. I mean, Kong Skull Island was done to sort of reintroduce people to King Kong, people who apparently don't know how to do a Google search, and show us what a modern King Kong would look like, and that's, the inclination is that they're going to meet at some point and throw down. I hope it's good. I mean, maybe it'll be better than the original. in the hearts of anybody who loves and loves the original, probably not, but it might be kind of cool. I don't know. I don't have a great attitude about these American Godzilla movies, but I'm open to them. I like monster movies. I like fun stuff, and I just want to see a good movie like you do, you know? So that's out now on video. Now, speaking of titans and larger-than-life things with magical superpowers who can do things unlike most mortal men, how about Elton John? Yeah, a lot of people think about Elton John now, and you think of the older Elton John, and he's fairly low-key, and he wears the shades all the time, and he does the greatest hits tours. But he was a madman across the water many moons ago, and we have here a film that is a musical biopic of Elton John from his boyhood right up to the point where he hits his greatest success, ups and downs into the 1980s, and it is entitled appropriately enough, Rocketman. This is, the best description I have for this is like you took Elton John's basic story, the basic story of his life and his rise to fame, and you turned that into what they call a jukebox musical for the stage, and then you made a movie out of that. That's what this is. This is a musical. Not many of the trailers really enhanced or really showed that aspect of the movie, but it is a musical, so people might be talking and suddenly the music swells, or he might be playing a song in concert and suddenly things get magical and unrealistic and it becomes a giant production number, which I really liked. It really suits the music. It really suits, again, as I was saying earlier, people forget, some people I think, or maybe we're too young to even know, that Elton John was an insanely flamboyant performer at one point. He would come out in a giant Donald Duck outfit. He would come out in rhinestones and feathers. He was the madman across the water. So this film shows that era. It shows his humble beginnings as like a gigging studio guy, a session musician, rising right up to what he became, the ups and the downs. It's really a typical showbiz story. It's the structure of a typical showbiz story. It's somebody who's humble, they have it all. Oh, they stumble. Will they get back? Yes, they do, and here's them at their peak. When I watch movies like this, I'm always trying to figure out what is the moment they're going to choose to end the story on a high note. And this does, and it shows you a lot of photos of the real Elton John, where he's become after that. So this is a film I think appeals a lot to the people who liked Bohemian Rhapsody. That was a less fantastical film, unless you count all the historical inaccuracies in it, in which case it was very fantastical, according to fans. But it was really good. Taron Egerton, who you might know from the Kingsman movies, he is Elton John in this film. And at first you think, he doesn't really look like Elton John, maybe except for the height. And then you watch the film, and it's like, no, he's got the voice down, he does the singing, and he does quite well. You're not going to be really fooled that you're hearing Elton John, but you're going to think you're hearing a really good impersonation of him. The performance, obviously, is really good. And you see a guy who's in these movies where he plays a tough guy, and suddenly he's playing, a sensitive musician, and he does it well. What can I say? I think this is the movie that made me realize this guy could act more than just be, charming in an action movie. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. The music obviously is good. I saw this in a theater where, the best surround sound system you could want, which I think is how to watch this. Like if you have a sound system at home, pick a time when your neighbors aren't home to watch this. Crank it up a little bit because it'll play a lot better that way. So what else to say about Rocketman? As far as I know, it's fairly accurate. Again, I didn't do the research. I'm not such a huge fan that I couldn't tell you if the timeline is messed up or if some of the things flat out didn't happen. But from what I've seen and what I know, from what I've gleaned in life, it's a pretty accurate version of it. Again, if you were going to say, go and see a Broadway musical based on somebody's life, it's about as accurate as that would be, which, is give and take. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Rocketman. That is out on video this week, and I don't know. I really liked it a lot. I had a great time with it. It helped that I liked the music. I think if it was about somebody whose music I hated, I probably would have a lot less good things to say about it. Okay, now, so we have the equivalents of half the show left, and I have no more movies to talk about. But what I'll do is a little what I did on my summer vacation, because I know you all love that so much. So if you're looking to watch this show, to hear about new movies that are available right now, you can just turn it off now, because we're done talking about new movies. We're talking about old stuff now. So as you may or may not know, I spend my weekends at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in Laheyton, Pennsylvania, and I work the cash register there. And this weekend was our 5th annual Camp Blood event, which I know sounds very appetizing. It is Exhumed Films out of Philadelphia. They put on amazing retro shows. They have been for 20 years. And they visit us once a month and work with us to put on amazing shows. They pick the movies, they put on the event, we host it and provide some accents to it. And Camp Blood has been one that we've been doing for 5 years now, and it's all camping-themed horror movies. So you think Friday the 13th and The Burning and stuff like Just Before Dawn, stuff like that. And we have people in costume dressed as characters from the films there. They do camping games during the day before the movies that are like instead of a sack race, it's a body bag race. Instead of an egg toss, it's an eyeball toss. Stuff like that. It's fun. And this is an event that's grown and grown every year. And this year we had our first actual sellout at the drive-in. Now the lot can hold about 900 to 1,000 cars, but we allow people to sleep overnight, and they set up tents and they set up RVs and they sleep in their vehicles. And doing that kind of alters how much space is available. So we actually reached capacity over the weekend, which is a huge achievement for us. I mean, I've been a patron of this drive-in since 2014 and I was there when they first started doing their all retro, all 35 millimeter programming. And there were some mighty lean nights, shall we say. There were a lot of events that had amazing movies and maybe a dozen cars there. But now, through word of mouth and just more and more people attending, through things like the At the Drive-In documentary, which I highly recommend. If you hear me talking about the Mahoning all the time and you're like, what is this fool going on about? Find At the Drive-In by Alexander Manelli. It's a great documentary. Even though I'm in it, it's a great documentary. And you can get it on Amazon Prime for free. Buy the DVD and there's extras on it. But that documentary, Philadelphia Inquirer just did an article about the theater. The Morning Call, which is an Allentown paper, I believe, in Pennsylvania, they did a big article about us, and that got picked up by the Associated Press, and that went everywhere. So the momentum is really huge. So we had a sellout crowd. It was amazing. I was working the snack bar cash register, and I did not stop for at least 6 or 7 hours straight, from when we opened until 11 o'clock or so when I finally took a break. It was just nonstop people coming through. Several people actually flew in and drove from Canada, from Michigan, from Wisconsin, from North Carolina, I think, from all over, really all over the country. Somebody came in from Austin, I saw, so it's pretty amazing. So what were the movies? We've been doing this for several years. Exhumed doesn't like to repeat titles if they can help it. So it was Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 2D. It was Prom Night, which is a favorite of mine. And what the heck was the other one? You'd think I remember. I was so busy working, I didn't get out until the last movie of the night. So forgive me for dropping the ball on what that last movie was. And then the second night, we had Jill Sholin, who you probably recognize if you like 80s movies. She was there in person, signing autographs, taking pictures, being just charming and personable. And we ran several of her movies. We had intended to run The Stepfather, but unfortunately the studio messed up and sent us the remake. And I'm just thinking, who wants the remake? Who even remembers that there was a remake? The fact that I would think the studio, even if you asked for the remake, I would think the studio would be like, you sure you don't want the original? Anyway, that was sort of a snafu, so we pulled that. But then we ran the movie Popcorn that Jill stars in, and Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, the Friday the 13th movie where Jason is like, somehow his spirit goes into people and it becomes like The Hidden. It wasn't a good idea. And it's not a terribly good movie, but it's goofy as hell and a lot of people enjoyed it. And then a movie called Cutting Class that I think was Brad Pitt's first movie and Jill Sholin is in. And so it was triple features both nights, original 80s horror trailers between each movie, the camping games and raffles, and it was insane. If you go on Facebook, look up Camp Blood or Mahoning Drive-In Theater or Exhumed Films, and if you're interested in the stuff I'm talking about, the pictures tell the story. It was just hundreds and hundreds of really happy people. As I like to say, for a group of people who gathered together to watch people get murdered on screen, it is the nicest group of people you'd ever want to meet. So we did Camp Blood last weekend, and it was amazing. It was fabulous. I'm beyond exhausted from 2 days on my feet, being up until the wee hours doing that, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was great. I got to watch Prom Night, which, if you don't know, is a Jamie Lee Curtis film from 1980, right as she was, cementing herself as the scream queen of that era. And it's basically Leslie Nielsen plays her father. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and it is somebody who's killing people on prom night at a high school prom. And who is it, and why are they doing it? And it's a wonderful disco slasher movie. I originally saw it at the age of 5 or 6 when NBC first premiered it in 1980, I believe, or 81 on the NBC Saturday Night Movie, I think. I watched it, I was home alone, or it seemed like I was home alone, and you're an idiot kid, you're scared out of your brains with this thing. change the channel. But I didn't. I watched prom night, and it was disturbing to me and scary, and I'd never seen anything like that before, and that always sort of burned itself into my brain. So a lot of people think prom night's cheesy and maybe not as good as some of the other films of that era, but I have a soft spot for it, and it was a lot of fun seeing it again on the big screen, on film, an original print, sitting in my car parked farther back than I usually like to be, but it was still a heck of a good time. And I can't wait until Camp Blood 6 next year. I have no idea what Exhumed is going to come up with. But Harry, who's the head honcho there, had said to me that it's going to be bigger and better than the ones that have come before. And I don't know how you top this year, but I have all the faith in the world that they're going to do it. And we're all going to be there to help out and manage the crowd and keep slinging out the food for people. So that was last weekend. So coming up, I'm just going to tell you about a bunch of really cool stuff that I think is interesting. If you like the kind of stuff I like, you might be interested in this. And I'll probably post all of these links on the Facebook page as well if you're interested to find out more information about it. I'm not calling anybody to action, you understand? Next weekend at the Mahoning Drive-In in Laheyden, Pennsylvania is, thank you. Just having a little monkey water. That's good water. So next weekend at the drive-in, just a little old Red Skelton piece. You know, hey, never dies, even though he did. This is Real Weird Weekend. It's another Exhumed co-presentation with the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. It's 3 nights because it is Labor Day weekend. A lot of drive-ins this weekend, coming weekend, are going to be doing dusk till dawn shows where they show a triple feature or quadruple feature or something like that because people have an extra day. They don't have to get up for work if they're lucky. So we're doing that. 3 nights of double features. First night is Remote Control, not the 80s game show on MTV. This is a film by Jeff Lieberman, who did Just Before Dawn, and he did Blue Sunshine, and he did Squirm, and a lot of fun 70s, 80s horror type movies, Satan's Little Helper more recently. And it is a film about, it is from the late 80s, it has got Kevin Dillon in it, and I believe Jennifer Tilly, and it is basically this bizarre videotape shows up in a video store that when you play it, it's been a while since I've seen it, I believe it like beams aliens or some weird deadly force into your house and kills you. So it is a very video store centric movie. I saw it for the first time at the Alamo not that long ago with Jeff in attendance, and it was a heck of a lot of fun. So Jeff Lieberman's going to be there at the drive-in with us. He's going to be signing autographs and selling copies of his movies and posters and all that. He's a really cool, down-to-earth, fun guy to talk to. He's done a lot in his career beyond the movies that you might know, and it's going to be fun having him out again. He's been out a few times with his other films. So we're running Remote Control and Cronenberg's Videodrome with James Woods and Debbie Harry. That is one messed up little movie. I never really saw the whole thing until recently. My friend Carl lent it to me. Thanks, Carl. And it was quite something to see. It'll be very much something to see on the big screen. Both of those are going to be on film. Also, we do live DJing before the movies at the drive-in. We have a little actual DJ booth from an old radio station in the projection booth, and folks take turns going in there, and each week one of us will sign up and spin whatever records you want to and talk about whatever, occasionally interview people and play audio clips and things. And my DJ debut is this Friday, August 30th at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater from probably about 6 until 8:30 when we start the movies. And it's something I've been wanting to do since I was in college. So it has been years since I've intended to be a DJ somewhere. And I'm not talking party DJ, I'm talking like radio DJ. So I'll have my witty, effortless, charming banter and maybe some facts about the movies and a lot of just music that I like. So that's Friday night. Saturday night, extremely excited. We have Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, which is just a nutty, wacky Phantom of the Opera take set in the rock and roll world from the early to mid 70s. And also Russ Meyer's Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And I'm a big Russ Meyer fan, and I'm really excited to see that movie on the big screen. I've actually seen that print before at the Alamo. It's the print from the American Genre Film Archive, and it looks perfect. Unless somebody's messed it up since I've seen it, it looks like you are sitting there opening weekend watching this garish, insane, psychotic soap opera, rock and roll movie written by Roger Ebert and directed by Russ Meyer. So that's going to be fun. I also have it on good authority that the Phantom of the Paradise will be there in person before the movie and between films on Saturday night. And from what I'm told, it's pretty much the Phantom of the Paradise who's going to show up. It's going to be pretty amazing. So if folks are a fan of that movie, they probably want to try to get down there if they can do that. Saturday night, so Sunday night I should say. Sunday night, in some ways is the one I'm most looking forward to. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, I'm super jacked about. I actually canceled plans for something else very, very interesting and cool so that I make sure I can see Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Sunday night is Inframan, also known as the Super Inframan. It's the Shaw Brothers movie from 1976 that is like a giant, the man beyond bionics. It's like the giant robot superhero fighting giant monster thing. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And I love it. And I've never seen it on a big screen. And at the drive-in, to me, is the most appropriate place to see this. And that is paired with, here's something you've never heard of, Super Argo versus the Faceless Giants. Yeah, that's what I said. It is a 1960s superhero, Italian superhero movie that is ridiculous. I've seen it. It's nuts. It's a guy in tights jumping off barely hidden trampolines, fighting bad guys and bank robbers, and it is exactly what you want to be seeing at 2 a.m. with a corn dog in your hand at the drive-in under the stars. I cannot wait until this coming weekend. That's where I'm going to be, just so you know. Also coming up, I'm going to go through some Mahoning stuff and then branch out a little bit. On September 6th and 7th, we have the Horror Prom. We've done something like this before. We have something called Vamparty that we do every year where it's vampire movies, and this season I didn't make it to it, but we ran Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and JT, who is our art director extraordinaire at the drive-in, transformed our snack bar into the prom from Buffy. It was pretty accurately like props and things from the Buffy prom in the movie, the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer, including the actual guitar stake prop from the movie. The actual piece of that movie was there. And then we had our friend Faye dress up as Buffy, and JT was dressed up as Pike, and it was glorious from the photos that I saw. Anyway, it's prom time again at the drive-in, even though we just ran prom night. It's going to be September 6th and 7th. It's going to be Carrie, the classic 76 De Palma film with Sissy Spacek, and I can't tell you what the second movie is. It's a secret feature, but it's going to be 2 movies. The second movie is dead on the theme of a horror prom. It's the movie that everybody hopes it's going to be, but I can't say what it is because I don't know what it is. It's the movie you hope it's going to be. So that's September 6th and 7th. That's going to be pretty cool. Then we have Teens Gone Wild on September 13th and 14th. That is 2 nights of teen sex comedies from the 80s, basically, inspired by Mike McPadden's new book, Teen Movie Hell, which I've read about half of and is amazing. That's a chronicle of the teen sex comedy genre from the 60s up into, I believe, at least the 90s. He covers all the movies that kind of went into that era and were the precursors to the era. I mean, you think of those movies, you're really thinking of kind of 80s movies, but there were a lot of those elements present before and after that. So he's actually going to be there. Mike McPadden's going to be there selling copies of Teen Movie Hell and heavy metal movies, another book he's written, and that's going to be a blast. He's a really cool guy. Excuse me, I get choked up when I think about that book. And we're going to have 2 nights of these sex comedies, which are including but not limited to Up the Creek, Joysticks. Up the Creek is basically Animal House meets Porky's on a whitewater rafting trip. So you have like the star of Animal House, the star of Porky's, and it's produced by Samuel Z. Arcroft. And it has a great Cheap Trick theme song and a pretty good soundtrack overall. And it's not as well known as these other films that are kind of inspiring it, but it's a lot of fun. Joysticks, which is a film about arcades. It was the arcade slob comedy of the early 80s. That's with Joe Don Baker. That's going to be playing. King Frat, which is sort of a gross out Animal House knockoff that I've actually never seen. I've seen the trailer for it, and the trailer looks pretty gross. So I'm going to see if I can make it through the movie. Then the second night is Revenge of the Nerds, the uber classic Revenge of the Nerds. Zapped with Scott Baio and Willie Ames. If you wanted to see 2 squeaky clean late 70s, early 80s TV teen heartthrobs that act in a movie about a guy with superpowers who tries to get girls undressed, then you've got Zapped right there. And Scatman Crothers is in it. And then we have Surf 2, The End of the Trilogy, which is an incredibly rare movie to see. It barely was released in its day. It was on videotape once. I don't think it's that great, but it does have a following, and it is just totally crazy. So we're going to be doing that. I'm also DJing on Friday night for that, playing a whole lot of 80s songs and songs from these movies, so that should be a blast. And then Weekend of Terror just got announced. It's not even officially announced yet, but again, Exhumed comes back September 27th and 28th, and it is 2 nights of really down and dirty, grindhousey kind of horror movies. I have to read the list because it's still fresh information to me. You have William Lustig's Maniac, legendary and infamous movie. You have Mansion of the Doomed, Mardi Gras Massacre, Driller Killer, classy, isn't it? Don't Go in the House, and Swingers Massacre. So I would say bring the kids to this one. I think this is a family event. You come, I would say, you're going to be going to church on Sunday anyway. Come Saturday night, stay up all night, and then just go straight to church because then you'll be able to pray away all that stuff that you just watched. Now, but that's not all that's going on. This weekend that I'm skipping, sadly, the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers is running the Trash Action Marathon. It is, probably bang on 10 to 12 hours of vintage 70s, 80s, 90s action movies. It's a mystery marathon. They're not telling you what they're playing beforehand. I have all the faith in the people who programmed this, that they're going to be amazing and crazy and probably stuff, at least to a degree, you haven't seen before. That is this Saturday, August 31st at the Alamo Drafthouse Yonkers. I think tickets are still available. It's $40, but what you're getting for it is many, 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 many times. It's 6 movies, so 6 times what an average ticket price would be is a lot more than $40. And considering these are movies you can't see anywhere and they're all on film on the biggest screen they have there, well worth the trip if you're interested in that. I wish I could go. I'm just like quadruple booked that day. I had a ticket, but I just can't do it. Coming up, an event that I love. Speaking of triple booked. So there's an event in Coxsackie. That's not how they say it. That's how they spell it. That's how I say it. Right over the Climax Brook. It's fantastic. Coxsackie, New York. The Highway Drive-In. It's a beautiful 3 or 4, I think, screen drive-in that I love. I've been there many years for this event. It's called the Dead Till Dawn Drive-In, and it is 2 nights of many crazy old horror movies, and it's a blast. I hate to miss it. I'm already booked. I can't make it to this one, but let me read you this title. Again, if this stuff means anything to you, these titles will get the back of your neck hairs standing up. Dawn of the Dead, the original, new 4K restoration, uncut. Oh God, at a drive-in. Followed by Zombie, Lucio Fulci's knockoff / unofficial sequel, followed by Zombie 3 and Zombie 4. That's in one night. That's it. 2019, you can actually get this at a drive-in somewhere. It's worth traveling to, believe me. And then night 2, this is crazy too. Phantasm, one of my favorite movies. The Changeling, a great horror movie, great ghost story with George C. Scott and Melvin Douglas. Don't Torture a Duckling, for my money, one of the best Lucio Fulci movies. It is a giallo film that I talk about a lot on the show. Actually, I reviewed the Arrow Blu-ray not long ago. Quite a good flick. And Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. Very strange regional indie film. That's also been put out by Arrow as part of their American Horror Project series. Very interesting, creepy. To me, a great way to round out an evening of horror movies at the drive-in, or any kind of movies at the drive-in. If you're watching a retro show or whatever, I always feel like that last movie should be weird. It should be the kind of thing that you're half in and out of consciousness, whether it's due to sleep or whatever you've been taken into yourself, and it plays like a dream. And let me tell you, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, even wide awake and with a glass of milk, plays like a weird dream. So at 2, 3, 4 a.m. at the drive-in, that's going to be pretty successful, I think. Also that same weekend is what I have been doing for years, and that is the drive-in Super Monster-Rama at the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. This was the show that got me to drive anywhere out of New England to go see a movie and to really long haul it, to do fun things and meet people. And it is Monster-Rama, and what George has done and Todd and Emma at the Riverside, that has really what led me on the path to who, what, and where I am today. Just the idea of what they did and the friends I have and where I'm working and all that stuff. So it is a 2-night Dusk Till Dawn retro monster movie show. But it's also like a social gathering. It's like a convention. You roll onto the lot early in the day, you hang out with friends, you buy food at the snack bar, you patronize, and I don't mean to belittle and be mean to, I mean you spend money. With Creepy Classics, who has 1,000 DVDs and Blu-rays and old monster movie kits and t-shirts and everything you would like if you're a retro monster fan. And you do that all day, and then it gets dark and they roll movies and they play old Three Stooges shorts between them and old vintage intermission reels and on and on and on. It is, I always have said, it's horror heaven on earth. It's a blast. The people are the nicest people you'd want to meet. And it also attracts people from all over the country. And it's people I consider very close friends that I only see once, maybe twice a year at this event. And let me read to you from this list of what they're showing, because this is a pretty amazing screening here. So you have Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, you have Dracula's Great Love, The Vampire's Night Orgy, and The Dracula Saga on night 1. That's one night. That's one night of movies for $10. That it still blows my mind that God bless America is all I can say. And then night 2 is The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, Night of the Seagulls, The Craving, which I've never heard of, and Graveyard of Horror. A lot of these are movies I've never seen, which at this point is impressive because I've seen so much. I've always been so hungry to see as much of this kind of stuff as I can and buy it and rent it and whatever and watch them on TV. That this far in, this many years in, like a decade into this show, he's pulling out titles that get the genre fans very excited and are things like some of us have never seen before. So I believe at least 4 out of those titles are on film, if that matters to you. Otherwise, they'll be presented on DCP or from disc, and they'll look fantastic. It's a great show. It's run by great people. George and Crystal, his fiance, put together these amazing prize bags that you can get raffle tickets for, and they're just like hundreds of dollars worth of really cool stuff. Usually it's related to the movie. It might be an autograph, it might be a model kit, it might be who knows what the Blu-ray of the film's showing that night. And it's a good time. It's relatively close to Pittsburgh, Vandergrift is. So people from Pittsburgh, a lot of those people come. When you're there during the day, a lot of people go to the Monroeville Mall pilgrimage to the mall where they shot Dawn of the Dead, or to the Evansville Cemetery, or Evans City, the cemetery nearby where Night of the Living Dead was shot. And it's a cool little pocket of Pennsylvania rural joy that I like. And you pass Uncle Charlie's Sausage Factory. That is not a euphemism, on the way to the drive-in. So I love Monster-Rama. I've only missed 2 Monster-Ramas, one for work and one for family issues. So I hate to miss it, and that sadly is the same weekend that Dead Till Dawn is happening, and as this next thing I'm going to talk about is happening. Back to the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers. This is Exhumed Films, the gang that puts on so many amazing things in Philadelphia. They do their own Horror-thon and X-Fest and various events. They did some really amazing retro 3D, 80s 3D marathons in 3D, and they do our Camp Blood and Zombie Fest and things like that at the Mahoning. They've done occasional shows annually for years at the Alamo Drafthouse Yonkers, and this one is, we'll see if it's the last one, we don't know. It is the Guilty Pleasures Marathon. They pick a fistful of movies from their archive that are just weird, nutty, old, garbagey, trashy, in the best sense of the word, horror genre films, and they play them one right after the other in the theater, and they have prize giveaways, and they just do really cool stuff, and they're a great group of people. So, The Keep, Michael Mann film, really hard to see, really hard to find on video. I think the only video copies of The Keep that are floating around that I know of are taken off the old VHS or the Laserdisc. It's a really hard film to see. Strange World War II set movie where there's some entity being held by the Nazis in this thing. That's what I remember about it. I haven't seen it since I saw it on HBO as a kid. Anyway, incredibly rare to see in any form anywhere. They're running that on film. The Last Shark, which is, I believe, a ridiculous Italian shark movie spawned by Jaws mania back in the 70s. I think this, I can't remember if this is 70s or early 80s. Somebody will correct me in the comments. And which I appreciate, by the way. Any kind of corrections, I'm just yapping. I'm just running on at the mouth here. I don't have all the details or anything for everything. I'm just based on what I remember and what I think I might know. The Last Shark, which I'm told is a blast. I don't think I've actually ever seen it. That is showing. Boarding House, which is weird. Boarding House was a movie that was shot on video and then transferred to film and played in theaters back in the early 80s. And it's a weird, shirtless yoga dude getting possessed and killing all the people who live in his groovy California 70s house in the early 80s. This is a film print of that. It's weird. It'll play well with the crowd, I think. Then we have Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster. That is a, I believe, early 60s junky sci-fi movie that's bad but fun. I've seen it before, and it's a good time. I've got it on DVD, actually. And then a movie called Fatal Termination that I've heard a lot about. This is a Hong Kong action film that apparently, what I keep hearing about Fatal Termination is that it starts off slow, and some people at one of the previous X-Fests, I think it was, bailed on it because they're like, this is boring, I'm tired, let's go somewhere else. And then it goes crazy. Then it goes very crazy, including a child being held out the window of a moving car by its hair. And it's real. Life is cheap in Hong Kong, or was back then. So Fatal Termination of the group is the one I actually kind of want to see the most. But sadly, I'm going to be at Monster-Rama that day, so I can't make it. But I'm telling you all this because I like to help get the word out for these amazing things. I know how exciting it is for me to be able to do any of this stuff, and how much I thought as a Ute that I would never experience any of this stuff, because I thought the era of these kind of movies and these kind of presentations died before I was able to get out to them. And people like Exhumed and George and Monster-Rama at the Riverside and the Mahoning and the Alamo, they're keeping the spirit alive of old-time ballyhoo and exploitation and just really the love of movies, which is something that burns my fuel, fuels my fire, burns my britches, all of the above. It's something I like. So I'm thrilled to know a lot of these people and call them friends, and I'm equally as thrilled that they put on the kind of shows I want to see, because I still feel at any moment all this could stop. So I try to soak up as much of this stuff as I can while I can. I encourage you to do the same. If you have somewhere local that is screening something that's kind of cool, it doesn't even have to be this kind of garbage that I like. If they're showing an old movie that you love, if, let's say they're showing Jaws, go see Jaws. It's a great movie. It's shown somewhere every day of the year, but it's a great movie, and I don't deny that. And anybody who's never seen it on the big screen, every movie is better on the big screen. It's more immersive. There's much less to distract you, and you see the details a lot better that way. Go out and support it, because it's not going to last forever, and it's only done if they make money. I mean, somebody might take a chance and do something really crazy and wild, and if nobody comes, that's going to be the last time you see that. So I would say go out to the movies if you can. I know it's not cheap, but it's an experience you'll remember. You will remember an experience of seeing a movie that really connects with you in a theater. I want to say probably much more than you are just popping it on TV at home. At least that's the way I operate. So that's pretty much all I have to talk about. Next week, I'm going to be at the drive-in watching a whole lot of movies and maybe going to a demolition derby on Monday. And we will, I think only one thing comes out, and I think it's just It Chapter 2. So I will definitely have seen that, and I will have hopefully seen a few other things to get caught up with some of these other movies that are out, because some of them look really good. I just haven't gotten there yet, and I want to try to catch them for myself before they scoot from the theater. On video, we'll have Booksmart, and we'll have Aladdin, which is still playing in theaters, and we'll have John Wick Chapter 3, and Men in Black International, and The Dead Don't Die, and maybe a couple of Arrow titles as well. I know I've got some of those piling up at home. So I think I'm going to scoot. I think that's going to be it for me today. I've talked long enough. You've listened to plenty of this jibber jabber, and I thank you. If you made it through to the end, pat yourself on the back, because this is not that interesting. So until next week, I am Mark. I am the Cinemaniac, and I will see you at the movies.